What if one sealed box, one forgotten night, and one terrified promise changed the fate of 3 generations, forever? Stay till the end, because this story hides a miracle inside a mystery, and if you love emotional suspense thrillers that hit the heart hard, subscribe to this channel now. Your support keeps these unforgettable stories alive. 6 years ago, on a rain-slashed winter night when the city looked like it was drowning in its own secrets, Adrian Vale, the youngest, coldest CEO the corporate world had ever feared, made a decision that would haunt him long after billions piled up under his name, because that night he wasn't the untouchable tycoon with glass eyes and iron rules. He was just a man bleeding from a betrayal, drunk on rage and loneliness, stumbling into an underground charity auction he barely remembered entering, where a strange segment was announced in whispers as "The Girl in the Box," a fundraiser meant to shock donors into generosity, a symbolic act against human trafficking. And when the lights dimmed and a wooden crate was rolled onto the stage with breathing holes carved like wounds, something inside Adrian cracked, because inside the box was not a spectacle but a woman, shaking, bruised by life not hands, eyes fierce despite fear, named Alara, a survivor who had volunteered to relive the darkness for one night so others might be saved. And Adrian, disgusted and furious at the world that allowed such pain, paid an outrageous sum to end the segment immediately, demanded the box be opened, wrapped his coat around Alara, and walked out with her into the storm, never intending more than to help her escape the nightmare. But fate is cruelly poetic, because one conversation led to another, truth bled into tears, and 2 broken souls found a fragile warmth in a silent hotel room where nothing graphic happened yet everything changed. A night defined not by bodies but by confessions, by Adrian admitting he trusted no one after his parents died in a scandal that stole his childhood, and Alara confessing she had lived most of her life hidden, boxed in by debts and threats. And when dawn came they parted with a promise never spoken aloud, believing some moments are meant to burn once and disappear, except they don't, they echo. And 6 years later Adrian stood at the pinnacle of power with a reputation as ruthless as steel, his only soft spot being his aging grandmother Margaret, the woman who raised him, whose one unfulfilled wish was to see him become a father before time took her memories away, a wish Adrian avoided with board meetings and silence, until on Margaret's 75th birthday he reluctantly attended a community fundraiser she adored, a small event at a children's learning center funded quietly by his company, where laughter replaced spreadsheets and for once he wasn't the biggest thing in the room. And that's when it happened, when a small boy with storm-dark eyes and a scraped knee broke free from a caretaker's hand, ran straight into Adrian's legs, wrapped tiny arms around him like he belonged there, tilted his head up with a grin too familiar to ignore, and yelled at the top of his lungs, "Daddy! You came back!" And the room froze, Adrian's breath vanished, his heart slammed like a trapped animal, and before he could speak, the boy added with devastating certainty, "I knew you would," while cameras clicked and whispers erupted, and from across the hall Margaret's shaky hands flew to her mouth as tears streamed down her face, because in that instant, the year she thought would end in quiet prayers exploded into impossible joy. Yet for Adrian it felt like the floor opened beneath him, because the child's eyes were his eyes, the tilt of his smile a ghost from mirrors, and then he saw her, Alara, standing frozen near the doorway, older, stronger, still carrying the same fire, panic and resolve colliding on her face as 6 years of silence shattered, and before words could be formed, she turned and fled, leaving the boy clinging to Adrian as if to a truth he had never doubted. And the days that followed became a blur of investigations and denial, Adrian ordering private DNA tests while tabloids screamed scandal, Alara refusing calls, lawyers circling like vultures, and Margaret, lucid for once, holding Adrian's hand and whispering that miracles don't ask permission. And when the results came back, 99.9% certainty, the world narrowed to a single unbearable truth. The boy, Leo, was his son, conceived on the night Adrian tried to forget, and rage burned not at Alara but at himself for walking away, for assuming some lives were better untouched. And when he finally confronted her in a modest apartment lined with children's drawings, Alara didn't beg or accuse, she simply told him the truth, that after that night the charity's sponsors vanished, the threats returned, and she chose disappearance to protect her child, refusing to reach out to a man who looked allergic to vulnerability. And the real twist cut deeper when Adrian discovered the fundraiser 6 years ago had been infiltrated by the same shadow group responsible for his parents' downfall. The box a trap meant to lure powerful donors, Alara a pawn who survived by refusing to stay silent, and Leo now a living target, forcing Adrian into a war he thought he'd already won, using his empire not for profit but protection, unraveling secrets that linked his past to Alara's suffering, while learning how to be a father in stolen moments, tying shoes, reading stories, watching Leo fall asleep on his chest like he had always belonged there. And the final blow came when Margaret's health declined rapidly, memory slipping like sand, yet every time Leo walked into the room she remembered, calling him, "My miracle." And on New Year's Eve, as the truth was exposed and the enemies fell, Adrian stood in a quiet hospital room where Margaret held Leo's hand, smiled at Adrian with clarity she hadn't shown in years, and whispered, "You finally opened the box," before passing peacefully, leaving behind grief braided with gratitude. And in the months that followed, Adrian stepped down as CEO, shocking the world, choosing a life rebuilt not on control but courage, standing beside Alara not as a savior but a partner, raising Leo with honesty about the darkness and the light, proving that some nights meant to be buried return as blessings, that a child's cry can heal generations, and that the girl once hidden in a box became the woman who unboxed a man's heart, turning loss into legacy, fear into family, and one unexpected, daddy, into the miracle that made a grandmother's final year the happiest of her life.